too much.
When you're looking at your camera, can you look at your camera? You were fine. You look fine to me now.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. One moment. Sorry, there's a problem. Shoot again.
Thank
10,
you.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Well, hi there. I'm Diana Montford, the world's first transgender television journalist. Born male, became female. Maybe I should be non-binary and solve the problem. Anyway, my guest is the fabulous Mr. Hercules Invictus. You've seen him before on this show, and he's one of the great producers of our time. He produces shows on Zoom, his own shows, on Blog Talk Radio, podcasts. His name really is Hercules Invictus. He is of Greek descent, and he had his name legally changed to Hercules Invictus, as well he should. So anyway, he's going to tell us about his upcoming plans for fall, and you'll want to hear this because if you have kids or whatever, or you want to learn yourself, you'll be fascinated. So here he is, Hercules Invictus. Hi there.
Hi there, how are you? Honored to be here today. Good to see you.
I'm honored to have you, and it's good to see you. So tell us, what are you up to these days?
Well, I'm kind of looking back on my life and reviewing all the different things I've attempted and all the things that I liked doing. And in whatever life I have left, I'm trying to do as much of that as possible. I guess that's the easiest way to summarize it. I am a very big fan of stories, especially mythic stories, and especially Greek mythology. But I've also studied Celtic, Norse, imaginary mythologies like the Lord of the Rings mythology, the Conan the Barbarian mythology. So those are intricate stories that have sprung up over the years, and I like them just as well. And Greek mythology is my all-time favorite, so I decided to focus primarily on that. And I've done different things with Greek mythology over the years. So now I'm doing my favorite things with Greek mythology at this.
Well, let me ask you a question. Is
Sure.
it mythology because you believe that the Greek gods and goddesses are eternal, that they have not gone away in a monotheistic Judeo-Christian world? So is it mythology, or is it, I don't know what you would call it, truth?
Well, it depends on how one approaches it. The different people, the stories mean different things, and it takes a lot to change somebody's belief system. With me, I love the stories, and they're part of my heritage, and I was raised on them. And in addition to the stories, my parents told me that I learned in Greek parochial school. We had at the time the Mighty Sons of Hercules, which was a television series that played, I believe, on Channel 9 mostly. We had the Mighty Hercules cartoon.
I remember that. Yeah, my friends and I loved that.
And then we had all the Hercules movies with Steve Reeves and Reg Park and Sergio Chiani, aka Alan Steele. And then we had in the comic books and newspapers Charles Atlas.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that all kind of uh, percolated together and created my particular inclinations. And one of the things I've done is I've explored Greek mythology in a variety of ways as stories that are spiritual, as stories that are just entertainment. Because in ancient Greece, they viewed them as entertainment as well as making a religion around them. You had cups and saucers and plates with pictures from the different stories, and you had plays written about them, and you had bards and minstrels telling tales and singing songs. So the stories have always been spread through popular culture, and at different points in time, they were interpreted in different ways. Some of them very irreverent to modern ears and eyes.
Now, I've heard you say on your podcast that you've always considered Hercules, the original Hercules, to be a design for living for
Yes.
contemporary people. Can you tell me why?
Well, since antiquity, my Chihuahua just jumped on my lap, so she might be popping her head up and licking my nose on occasion. Um, since ancient times, Hercules was considered an exemplar. In other words, to the Stoics, to the Cynics, to a lot of different people, to the Platonists. So he lived his life in expiation. So even though he was the son of the chief god of the Greek pantheon, being human was tough for him, and he made a lot of mistakes. Some of them tragic, some of them horrific. So
Excuse
he
me, doesn't
was,
this sort of parallel the Christ story?
yes, in very many ways. In fact, Hercules was called Soter, which means savior, long before Christianity existed, and also the famous art that had Christ stooped down over the weight of his cross. That's
Mhm.
based on an earlier picture of Hercules with the two pillars that he's
Ah,
balancing just as precariously. And from what I've read, during the time of the Roman Empire, when Christianity was outlawed, and you can get the death penalty for being Christian, the priesthood of Hercules hid the Christians and kept them safe from the Romans.
and that is because they were people who were evolved and wanted to help everyone.
Yes, and Hercules has been associated not only with bodybuilding, but also with gymnasiums and with museums and with higher education. So he had a pretty wide portfolio. And there were more than one Hercules in ancient times. Being a Hercules is kind of like a job rather than it's a job.
Sort of like being a Cleopatra in Egypt.
Yes.
Mhm.
And like there are accounts of one of the Herculeses being short and one of them being very smart and doing engineering work. And they've explained his labors from an engineering perspective. Um, but he got into Olympus or returned to Olympus, depending on what you choose to believe, by performing his labors. And the labors have since antiquity been tied to the zodiac. So it's the sun's journey through the zodiac, which is a repeating theme, including Christianity. Christ had his 12 apostles, Hercules had his 12 laborers. It's the same cosmic story told in different cultural words and phrases and accoutrements.
Now, you are extremely eclectic in your metaphysical tastes.
Yes.
Theosophy, the concentric circles, everything. You know everything about
I don't know
all
everything.
things metaphysical.
I don't know everything, but I do know a lot. I've made it my life study, and I'm in my mid to late 60s, so I picked up a lot of stuff while I'm here.
So, do these theories all go in the same direction? Isn't it, if you could distill everything into one sentence, wouldn't it basically be do unto others as you would have them do unto you?
You can say that. In Greek mythology, not all the heroes were nice, and heroism didn't mean the same thing then that it means now. It meant basically being your personal best, your areti, your translated
And
usually
even if you're a total monster, be the best monster there is, and
pretty
then you're
much
batting 1,000.
your uniqueness was the key to your divinity. And by finding and expressing your divinity, you drew attention of the gods. And then
And the
you,
comic book people seem to have they've taken that, and because each person, each entity in the Marvel universe, for example, highlights their individuality.
right. And superhero literature is the closest thing we have now to a mythology that's living.
Mhm.
It's something that people tune into in popular culture and it's shared by all. Even though there's a canonical like timeline in Marvel, still there are endless variations of the story told by different people that portray the gods in different ways, or the superheroes in this case in different ways. Some of them very dark and unpleasant, but they explore the human condition through these stories, through these characters, and that's a vital human need. to self-reflect, to explore what if, and to also play with the idea that you're more than you appear to be. That this is your secret identity, and actually you're something a lot greater. People could only see it if only you can express it.
Well, and sure, and even in the hyper atheistic mid 20th century, Superman, Batman, all these people with secret identities, and their secret identities were infinitely better than the seemingly commonplace people they were in day-to-day life.
Right, and who they are is the superhero.
Right, yeah.
That's the real them. Like Clark Kent, for instance, it's been commented on very many times, including during interviews for Kill Bill, where they talked about it a lot, that Superman, his secret identity is a cover to diminish his superiority or his innate
Yes.
divinity. And he's a sun god. It's very clear to anybody who follows any type of sun god that he's a sun god.
Well, now, what do you say to people who say, oh, I don't believe in anything. I don't believe when you're dead, and there is no God, and all that is just so much mumbo jumbo, and which people have said to me. I've even lost a friend or two because I dwell so much on metaphysics in my show. And a former friend, I guess he's a former friend, said, well, this is ridiculous. Talking to you is like talking to someone who's in the fourth grade. What I consider my evolution, others might consider my devolution, as in I'm sinking into a mire of fantasy. But what's fantasy and what's real?
And that's a very important point. I'm sorry you lost your friend. I've lost friends over the same type of thing. But I have found that the times when I'm most alive is when I'm exploring and expressing these things.
Hmm.
So we don't ultimately know what will happen after we die, but we can explore the different possibilities. And there are stories, and we could try the stories on for size and see how they resonate with us. And we can explore and go off on an adventure. But your way is not the only way. No one's way is the only way. And sometimes we
That's
might hang out with
that's exactly
people,
what I said to this person. Yeah, exactly.
and sometimes
Who,
you might
by the
hang
way,
out.
idolizes the fictional character of Sherlock Holmes
Aha.
and dresses like a film noir hero or anti-hero with Borsalino hats and very precise suits. I mean, I actually said, you, who are eccentricity personified, are telling me that, I mean, look, we all have our stuff.
Right. And Sherlock Holmes's creator was a spiritualist, so he believed.
Absolutely. He was one of the founders of the psychical research thing, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And don't you also write for Llewellyn, the famous metaphysical publisher?
I'm working on something for Llewellyn now. It's been written and rewritten and rewritten. They're very professional in that way. It might come out later this year or early next year. I'm not really sure, but it's been an adventure and experience, and I'm sure that it'll open doors for other uh, higher level publications. I've been fortunate to be published by Tim Beckley's company
Mhm.
while he lived, and then afterwards by Zontar Press. So I managed to be published in over 20 something books in the past few years.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm pretty happy with that.
How did you become? I ask you this on every show we do. How in God's name does someone become you? Most people are just living, existing.
They
You're
should
living on all cylinders. You,
they shouldn't
you,
try to become me. They should try to become who they are.
yeah, but a lot of people really are dull. I mean, how did you get to be so interesting and such a Renaissance person?
Well, thank you those for your kind words. I love life and I'm fascinated with life. I don't take life for granted. And every day is an opportunity to be, do, and experience all sorts of really cool things. I'm fortunate in knowing people like you and other like really amazing, unique, and really big-hearted individuals. So my social life, such as it is very pleasant. I get to interact with some of the best people, and I couldn't even make up the people that I've met through this journey. And I get to be creative all the time with the different ways of expressing myself through writing, through the entertainment. And again, every day I learn something new. And if I learn something really impressive, I'll let the person know, thank you, you've changed the way I look at the world. I don't care if people think it's bullshit, or I don't know if I could say that on MNN,
You
but
just said it. It's fine.
just said it.
Fuck.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because it's something that I enjoy, and it doesn't ultimately matter. Like, I'm not out to try to prove the existence of the Olympians to anybody else, so they can follow the Olympians. But the Olympians are part of our imagination. They're part of our culture. They're on court buildings. They're everywhere you look. You know, they're in flower shop.
Isn't the Statue of Justice something like
Yes.
that?
Mhm. So they're part of our collective experience in the world today, especially in the West. And even though they're no longer teaching mythology as much in school, or even Greek history much in school here in America anymore, still Hermes is recognizable to anybody who orders flowers, and everyone knows who Hercules is from the different movies and cartoons and comic books, and they know the difference between Athena and Hera and Demeter. So again, these stories are part of the human condition. They're still very much alive and well. People are telling new stories. They're repeating the old stories with a new twist, and so they're like us but writ large, and so they're adventures like ours but writ large, and they're mirrors in which we can see ourselves and learn something about ourselves or other people. And we live the myths. So we're in a way stuck in some stories. You know, these are the archetypal stories. And as Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung have pointed out, as well as all the transpersonalists like Hillman, we live these stories. And if you know the myths, you can identify your own stories and then get unstuck from your stories. And it gives you the freedom to adopt or be adopted by another story. And then you'll live that until, again, you can catch it and free yourself from it. And freeing yourself from these social stories, you're freer because you have more options. You're not stuck in this is how it is, this is how it must be.
Well, you could also say that classic Western films and novels
Yes.
are a continuation of quote unquote mythology.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
They're part of our modern mythology too. And their
Mhm.
mythology is for everybody. If you don't like the Greek mythology or the Celtic or the Norse or the any
The
other
Egyptian,
mythology,
whatever, yeah.
yeah, you can go for cowboy mythology. You can go from barbarian movie mythology. You can go for cartoon monsters mythology. It doesn't really matter. There have actually been magic books about, not
I
magic,
know, I know.
but
You,
about,
you might like to explain that to people out there, magic.
oh, okay. Uh, Magic is affecting change through your will. And
And
some
magic spelled with a K at the end.
with a K at the end. And sometimes magicians will have props and dress a certain way and have certain scents in the air and use certain colors to get them in the mood so that they can
Like our
feel.
wonderful friend Michael K. Waterman said.
Yes, he's an excellent magician. So there are magical systems now where enough people have seen this, where they've written books about pop culture magic. And they even have instructions on how you could devote a ritual to Spider-Man if you were of a mind to.
Well, if you stop to think, I mean, a goddess, Marilyn Monroe in her white dress as it flies up,
Yes,
it's a representation of a goddess in a sense.
yes. And she has been with Aphrodite for very many years. She's like a modern Aphrodite. And this was happening in antiquity too. And Mark Antony, when he was younger, was considered to be an expression of Hercules. And then when he was older and got sodded and was drinking and doing drugs and all sorts of stuff, he was thought to be an incarnation or an expression of Dionysus. So here's the same person at different points in their life, and they were perceived, their divine was perceived differently and expressed itself differently during those periods in his life.
Yeah, and that's fascinating. That okay, Jessica Lange, from Aphrodite to Juno, from
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, people change.
Yeah, people change. People live different myths. Like I'm having I'm in my mid to late 60s, and I used to love lifting like really ridiculous heavy weights and doing things like that, and uh, expressing my strength by lifting heavy things and carrying them long distances, everything from luggage to you name it. Again, I have to let go of those things at this particular point in time. I still work out every day, but I'm a different person than I was when I was younger.
Aren't
And
we all? Nobody wants to see me in a bikini these days. So there you go, you know.
I don't know. I think you do well in the bikini.
Well, thanks. Does your wife know you're legally blind? I no, I'm kidding. No. But anyway,
I have
so
I have the best wife ever. What do you call it?
I'm sure you do.
My
I'm
life
sure
journey
you
is a
do.
strange one, and she's been there with me for the past 20 years. So
And
I'm
sometimes
honored.
when we're talking, she's also on the line and she says stuff. So yeah, I know she's
Yes.
brilliant and fun. Is it? You're both teachers, aren't you?
At this particular point in life, yes, we have a company that does enrichment programs for schools where we take them into different stories. We have programs about ancient Greek mythology, and every semester we pick a different place that we add to it. Like we have them adventure up in the north with the Norse gods, or down south with the Egyptian gods, or but they're stories. They're not conveyed as spirituality. These are stories they're familiar with from Percy Jackson mostly, and from cartoons.
Well, I went to Catholic school and we read Aesop's fables.
Right.
You know, I mean,
I was young too, we read them in school.
right, exactly. Now let me ask you about your upcoming classes. Uh, you said you and your wife are doing, so tell me about this.
Sure. I've been doing for years now Greek mythology, and then either superheroes or outer space. And the kids get to have adventures. The superhero one now is tied to the environment, where they can be environmental superheroes. So they get to make small changes in their own life, or think of better ways of keeping the environment intact. We're just starting one. My wife is starting it on cryptids, where she's going to teach about cryptids and the stories of different cryptids. So I'm
Okay,
excited
what's a
about that.
cryptid?
Uh, it's the Jersey Devil. It's Bigfoot. It's
Oh, okay.
chupacabras.
Mothman, maybe?
Yeah, Mothman definitely. And she's been researching it for a long time. When we were in Pennsylvania years ago, over a decade ago, we used to investigate cryptids. And in Pennsylvania today, there are people who see uh, crawling hands or octopuses that look like hands. They're seeing all sorts of Black Panther looking creatures.
Is
Uh,
that like a hole in a dimensional divider? Is that what, and that famous film of Bigfoot from 1967?
right.
It's a female Bigfoot, and she gave such a resentful, leave me alone look at the camera people, you know?
Yeah, it's different things, and part of the different things are people are living different stories. The stories are meaningful to them, that experience. The experience may or may not have been real by objective standards, but it changed them. And then sometimes these experiences, they share them with other people, change those people too. So these are very powerful things.
How
Uh,
can people go to these classes? How do they sign up for these classes?
Well, we offer them through various schools here locally. My days of traveling long distances and things like that are behind me. So we offer them through schools, and we give them in libraries usually.
You mean New Jersey, where you live?
Yeah, New Jersey, and we're starting online again. We're going to have some classes and some interactive storytelling. The online is going to be for adults. Not that it's going to be adult themed, but because you don't want,
Stormy Daniels is not invited. Yes, I know.
right? And plus you don't want
Actually, she is if she wants to sign up. Yeah.
kids being in the same groups as adults, especially online where you can't tell who anybody is.
No,
So we're
yeah.
offering online classes, to people over 18. And I've held these types of groups for adults before. So we're doing this one in the peplum genre. So the version of mythology that we're going to be using is based on peplum. So if you're
Peplum being the sword and sandal movies.
yes, so if you've seen those movies and you like them, then we're going to be doing a variation of that.
And
And
each generation gets the Peplum films it wants.
yes,
Peplum films from, say, 1962, made in Italy, are very different from Peplum films made today in, say, Slovakia under American auspices, you know?
Correct, yeah. They're a lot different, and I'm looking at some of the more recent things, like Jeff Goldblum. He is playing Zeus in a mini series called Chaos, Kaos.
Yes.
So that was actually done very well. And then there's a cartoon called Cropopolis where they're showing the rise of ancient Greek civilization. So there's always new ways of looking at the myths and experiencing
Didn't
that.
you Greeks invent higher education, logic, philosophy? I mean, you've done a nice job, you know?
Thank you. We invented yo-yos too, something.
Did you really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
And they had death rays in antiquity. They had these mirrors that were highly polished.
Mhm.
And they used to sign when the sun would shine on them, the concentrated heat could be aimed just like it was with a magnifying glass.
Uh-huh.
People a little they experiment with that and set fire to things. They had them, and they had repeat shot crossbows. You know,
Well, let
like
me tell you something. In makeup rooms, in the theater, if there's a window, they tell you, please put all the hand mirrors down because if the sun hits the mirror, it can start a fire.
yes.
Eventually,
So
you
they
know?
weaponized that in antiquity.
Yeah.
They
So,
also had animatronics.
can you give your contact information so
Sure.
people who want to take your classes can take your classes?
Sure. My email is hercules.invictus, INV as in victory, ICTUS at gmail.com. And put in the subject title that you want to take a class, because I get flooded with so many emails I can't possibly read them all. But if I see that somebody's interested in class, I know what that's about, and I'll respond to it as quickly as I can. Facebook, I have several accounts. It's Hercules with no dot, Invictus, and you can find me there. My most current account and active account has Mount Olympus in the background. So if it has a lion or something else there, it's still me, but it's not as active as the one with Mount Olympus. And through Facebook, you can sign up for the interactive storytelling that's based on Sword and Sandal Cinema.
Are you ever going to do interactive computer stuff for children?
Maybe later on, but right now I prefer doing it in the schools in person. During the pandemic, I contemplated it, but decided to wait and just again, New Jersey is very good with vetting everybody who interacts with children.
Mhm.
So they do complete fingerprint, FBI, and all sorts of other
Yeah,
background.
I lived in New Jersey for many years. I'm aware of that. Yeah, they're very good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I respect that and I support it. So I just stick within whatever, it gets vetted and done. And online, there's so much of an opportunity, for people to be not who they are, but somebody else. There's a lot of anonymity online,
God
and I,
help us. Yes.
and I don't have
Like
the
70-year-old men pretending to be 13-year-old girls or something. Yes.
yeah, stuff like that. So I try to avoid all that.
Don't we all? Mm. But anyway, so okay, so now let me ask the director how much time we have. Corey, how much time do we have?
Three, 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Okay,
So why not give your contact information again so people can
sure.
contact you?
Sure. Hercules.invictus@gmail.com. That's my email. And put in the subject line what it's about. So this way I know to flag it and to get to it as quickly as I possibly
Like
can.
a class or something you want to take and Hercules?
Yes.
No, that's it. Yeah.
The other way is Facebook. And Facebook, the account with Mount Olympus in the background is the one that's most active, and I'm likely to check that a couple of times a day. Other than that, if you live in northeastern New Jersey, just check what's in the catalogs. I've held these classes not only in schools, but also in libraries and other organization locations. We had it going in a homeless shelter for a while where the kids there, would take part in adventures. And that was funny because the kids were reporting to their parents, to the staff, that the other kids were jealous that they weren't in
Mhm.
shelters because these kids got to ride dragons and fight goblins and have all sorts of other.
Can you believe in the richest country on earth? Children live in shelters and are often food insecure.
It's very sad.
Yes, it is. So anyway, well, you're fabulous, and I can't wait until you come right back on this show and tell us about what other stuff you're doing, other adventures. And anyway, my guest has been the amazing producer, mythologist, metaphysician, what else?
Eccentric.
I'm sorry?
Eccentric.
Oh, aren't we all? This amazing Renaissance person named Hercules Invictus. I'm Diana Montford. This has been the Diana Montford Show. I love you a lot, and I will see you next time. And take really good care of yourself. And for pity's sake, vote blue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go now.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Let me shut off the recording.
Can you hear me?
Yes, excellent.